Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Alex Lopez Talks on the Alex Lopez Rocks YouTube channel. Joining me today is the amazingly talented and soulful, because he's one of the best blues players I've heard in such a long time, Albert Castiglia. Albert, thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here, in spite of your hat.
In spite of your hat, you mean?
Sure. For the sake of diplomacy, yes.
Yes. Hey, look at it this way. It could be worse. We could be Jets fans.
That's true. They're pathetic.
Yeah. Owen forever. Besides our glaring rivalry, which we will continue to avoid until the end of the interview, I want to thank you for coming on board.
Thank you.
A mutual friend actually turned me on to you. Roger Mello from Seaglass Guitars. He had sent me this video a few years ago of you playing one of his RM3s, and it was one of his models, and I saw that video, and I'm like, the guitar sounds amazing, but the guy playing it blew my mind, and that happened to be you. So after a couple of months of back and forth communication on Facebook Messenger, we got this interview on, and I'm so excited for you to be on here.
Thank you for having me. Roger's an amazing luthier. Let me tell you something. I love that guitar. I was willing to make a trade. I would trade one of my Les Pauls for that guitar, but it was a prototype, and he had just made it when we met at Chan's.
Yep.
And then around the time he did the podcast with you recently, mm-hmm. I had seen the podcast, and then I reached out to him because I was on tour, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm going to be in the Northeast. Can I play your guitar while I'm up there?" And then we were supposed to meet up in Plymouth, and then they had that hurricane.
Oh no!
Threat, and we weren't able to hook up. But yeah, he's a tremendous luthier. Those guitars are awesome.
Yeah,
there are a lot of great guitar makers out there, you know. But I've always, and they always bring me guitars and stuff, and I love playing them, and I like promoting the smaller guys, you know, the independents. I like promoting them, but
the boutique shops, yeah,
man. Like there's a guy in Sarasota named Victor McGuire. He's got a guitar company called Blind Armadillo, and his is great. His are great. And then there's Mike Delaney out of Texas with Delaney guitars. They're great. Ooh. I love those guitars. They got those natural finishes on the neck. Like everything is natural and raw. And I'm more of those, like, I kind of like the necks with the nitrocellulose, with the fast neck, you know. And I've never come across an independent luthier who had made a guitar with the fast neck until Roger brought me that RM3, and that guitar is the closest to my Les Pauls that I play. It's the equal. It's an equal.
Oh yeah, and you know, for me, I'm more of a PRS guy, and he found a way to make this beautiful guitar for me too. It's almost like a hybrid between a custom, like a PRS SE250, and one of their custom 24s, and a Les Paul Junior with the single humbucker.
Sure,
you know, and it's, for me, I like a longer scale neck because I like to detune and experiment with tunings from, like, you know, for the modern rock stuff that I do, and it's amazing. I just love, like, everything about that guitar feels amazing.
Well, I'm glad he's the one that brought us together.
Yeah, me too. Shout out to Roger Mello from Seaglass Guitars, and also shout out to Mike Delaney. And there was one more that we mentioned.
Victor McGuire, Blind Armadillo Guitars.
And shout out to one more time.
Victor McGuire. Blind Armadillo Guitars.
From Blind Armadillo Guitars. There we go. So shout out to all these amazing luthiers who are out there making awesome guitars for us to play. I'm gonna go into a little bit of the song, one of my favorite songs that I've heard from your records, because you've put out, I think you have like 9 or 10 blues album, and then I think you also have a live album, which is fantastic as well.
Right. Thank you.
So I did a little bit of a musical deep dive, and I was like, this stuff sounds awesome. It's like it has like the classic vibes of like Stevie Ray and a little bit of Muddy Waters, but it flows in a modern age and contemporary with like Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Joe Bonamassa as well. You have that happy medium in your sound that is so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just, I'm merely a product of everything I've ever listened to that influenced me, and that's what came out. That's what's come out of me the last few years.
That's awesome. Now, how long have you been playing guitar, and like what made you get into it? Well, and the blues itself too, because the blues, it's a very dedicated role,
Well, I came from as far away from the blues as it gets. I grew up a middle class kid in the suburbs of Miami, and my uncle played guitar, and he used to have little jam sessions with his friend at my grandmother's house. Like he played guitar, and then there would be a drum kit, and his friend would play drums, and then they'd switch off, and it was kind of like a bad Black Keys tribute band, but this was like in the late 70s, early 80s.
Nice.
There weren't even Black Keys back then. It was just guitar and drums, and it sounded cool to me, being 12 years old, and that's kind of what inspired me to want to play. And then my uncle taught me like 2 or 3 chords, and I kind of learned the rest myself. Just kind of picked it up by ear, and it was classic rock that I was into. Of course, I mean, how else does somebody from Miami get into the blues but through rock and roll? It's nice. I think it's how most white kids and people growing up in the suburbs, how they get into it. They just you get into it through rock and roll. The blues had a baby, and they named it rock and roll. So I got into Hendrix and Clapton.
Nice.
And Stevie Ray, of course, but at the time, Clapton, when I was a kid, and I know he's taken a beating lately because of his stances on certain things, but Clapton was my early influence. I mean, I would not have gotten into blues if it wasn't for Eric Clapton. I had this album called Just One Night. It was a live album. It was a double live album he put out. It was live in Japan, and it had like 60 to 75% of the material was blues oriented stuff. Like he had done some Junior Wells and what else did he did some Robert Johnson and Maceo Merriweather and Bobby Bland. And that's kind of how I got into it. I was like, man, this stuff is really cool. And then I started getting into, I noticed that other people wrote these songs that he was recording.
Yeah.
So I went and got into the original versions of these tunes. And that's kind of how I got into blues. And then I bought this Muddy Waters album when I was 15. It was called Just One Night. It was actually a cassette. Not Just One Night, excuse me. That was the Clapton album. Hard Again by Muddy Waters. That was the album that really changed my life. That made me want to play, real, Chicago blues. I bought that record. It was a cassette, and I took it home. And I went to Sounds of Music was the name of the record store. It was in the Miracle Mile section of Coral Gables. I went and picked it up, bought the cassette. It was the only Muddy record they had there on the shelf. Ooh, nice. I took it home, popped the cassette in, and the first thing you hear is Muddy's booming voice going, oh yeah, right into, and then he does that a cappella run for a few seconds, and then the band comes in.
That's awesome.
And it was the most amazing thing I ever heard. We're talking about mid 80s when I heard this. So at the time, there was all this bubblegum sugary crap that was coming out. There was stuff of substance.
Yeah.
Of course, I liked some of the hard rock stuff, and Springsteen was certainly putting out really good stuff. But but I was into AC/DC and Van Halen too.
Oh, yeah.
And that had its merits. But by and large, the 80s had some real cheesy crap. And for me to hear this, even though the album was 6 or 7 years old, it was the freshest stuff I ever heard. So that was the record that made me want to play blues. Was that Muddy Waters Hard Again album?
Nice.
And it was produced by Johnny Winter.
That's wow. And I didn't even know that Johnny Winter produced that album.
He sure did.
Johnny Winter was an amazing force in his own right with the blues.
He was a big influence on me.
Nice.
John, there are 5 guitar players that you could blame or contribute for my style. So like it's Clapton, it's Muddy. I mean Clapton, Johnny Winter, Freddie King, Luther Allison,
Nice.
and I'm Buddy Guy. I think did I say Buddy Guy already?
Nope.
So those are the 5, I think.
Nice.
So right. Let me see. It's a little early in the day, so I'm a little fuzzy. Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, Johnny Winter, Luther Allison, Freddie King.
Nice.
Right?
And that's like a Murderer's Row blues players right there.
So yeah, so Johnny Winter, him producing that album was my first introduction to him, and then I bought records after that he made, and that's what we're all about. That's what musicians are. We're what we are is we're just culminations of everything we listen to that mattered to us, and that's what comes out of us, pretty much.
Exactly. I completely agree. It's like you have these moments where, you like, for example, like I usually ask, what's that aha moment and what's that song you hear, just because it's kind of has that same effect where you hear, like, it's songs are these little fragments and moments in time that you're hearing. And it's like, and it one day it might not hit you a certain way, and another day the song that you might have heard before all of a sudden just opened your eyes up to a whole new world.
It happens, and it's not. It's one of many moments. I mean, the first one I'll never forget. It was always going to be that Muddy Waters song, "Manish Boy." Track 1 of the Hard Again album was the one that got me. That was the revelation for me. But I've had tons of moments that changed my life after that. That influenced me. Hearing Luther Allison's Blue Streak album, watching him live in concert, the various Clapton shows that I went to. I'll never forget the first time I went to see Clapton. It was in 1985.
Oh, nice.
And I went by myself, of course, because nobody in my high school was into Clapton. They were all metalheads and stuff. So I went by myself naturally, and I had a single ticket. And I remember sitting in between these 2 statuesque, beautiful women, and I remember them just like going gaga over him playing. I believe he was doing "I Shot the Sheriff."
Nice.
And those chicks were just like, and I was just like pre-pube, looking at these Amazonian women, just like, I said, man, this is where it's at. That was one of those moments. And then seeing Stevie Ray for the first time live, seeing him live was another revelation. At the same arena that I saw Clapton, within a few months apart of each other. There's a series of moments. I mean, you never forget the first one, but there's a ton after that just change your life.
Yeah. But I mean, having like literally the span of months, being able to see somebody who helped shape rock and roll and then said, you know what? I want to go back to the blues and play the way Robert Johnson did it, and goes back and strips it all back down and starts over to find his way, not into the blues. Because that's always been my perspective with what Clapton's done. I feel like when you hear him and Cream, he already had this original organic sound within himself. And then as he progressed, he decided, like, I don't want to be a rock guy. I want to be a blues guy. And he literally shifted his sound through Derek and the Dominoes and his solo stuff to be a lot bluesier and a lot less rock and roll.
Right.
Which I found, like, because most guys that I've found from the blues, they usually start off with the blues and then they kind of progress and become a little more rock and rollish and a little more mainstream. He kind of decided to take the opposite direction and still became more mainstream in the process.
Right. Well, they found a way, in the 80s, they found a formula for him. He was able to work his blues in, but they made his music palatable for the mainstream. I mean, geez, the Behind the Sun album is I think is one of his most underrated records.
I'll have to go back and check that one out then.
Oh boy, that was a great one. And that was the tour I had seen him for the first time, and he had Duck Dunn on bass, and the album itself is I feel is a masterpiece. And he does this great song called "Same Old Blues." It's an original and it's real bluesy, but has very interesting changes in it. And I that's a remarkable album. So then Forever Man was on that same record, which was that big hit that he had in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then he had that Journeyman record, which he was able to weave blues into pop mainstream.
Oh yeah. And he's done that throughout his career too. Because in the '90s, he did a lot of these soundtrack movies and a lot of poppy sounding stuff with like Sting and Babyface.
Yeah, the Rush soundtrack in the early '90s was a great one.
Yeah,
it was a great one. He also did this independent movie that had come out called Homeboy with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah,
and the stuff on that record is pretty. The stuff he did on that one is amazing.
That's awesome.
He's taken a lot of heat for some of his stances on things politically, and I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but sometimes you have to separate
the artist from the
artist from the man, the man from the
music,
from the music, because I can't deny his influence. I would be a liar. I've never lied. I try not to lie to people.
Yeah,
and you should have to. As I can. And well, it's a very pitchforky world we live in now.
Yeah, it feels like the certain parts of it have become a little more divided. But I think one thing that you do, especially with the sound that you've got, is regardless of whatever views you have.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
You wearing that hat demonstrates that no one is perfect. And
yeah. And then, like you wearing that Dolphins hat shows that like you're going to be eternally a blues player because you have nothing to celebrate with the Dolphins.
Me and Hootie cry on a regular basis.
I love it. But it's like every chance he gets to go and pay homage to the blues, Clapton does. Like, everyone knows who, B.B. King was. But it's like when his career was like kind of a little less prevalent in the 90s and early 2000s, Clapton could have taken the cash cow route that he had done, like other artists do. And he's like, no, I'm going to go back and do another blues album. But this time it's going to be a duo album with B.B. King, with Writing with the King.
Right.
So it's like, nobody's perfect. People have their flaws. Some people are Dolphins fans. But I
think you guys are beginning to suffer, so I'm going to show you empathy.
Oh yeah, I show it right back.
No, you're not. You're a
I will because Marino.
But it's sometimes it's hard for me to resolve that with him, because there are just things that I just vehemently disagree with him about. But man, I can't.
But the music's so good.
I can't escape the fact that if it wasn't for him, it's all these little moments influence your life.
Oh, absolutely.
And when I bought that Eric Clapton album, when I was like 12 or 13 years old, that record changed my life. It got me into blues, and I would not have gotten. I don't know. I might have gotten into it later on, but it was that record that made me want to look into it.
Yeah.
And so I can't, I'd be lying if I can't whitewash history and write off the fact. The fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten into blues. And because of that, I'm here talking to you today. It's one of the. It's like I said, it's one of those moments. It's those moments. It was a series of moments for me that got me to where I am now. I'm very grateful for what I do.
Same here. And by the way, I'm also a fan of Clapton's early work and most of his work. And I agree with you. I don't agree with his worldviews at this stage in his life. But for me, I kind of go back to the songs are good. And, for me, I guess it's sometimes a little bit easy to compartmentalize it because you don't necessarily know him as a person. You don't share an actual relationship with him. So you could say, this music's good. and this stuff helped shape me as a person and what I do with my life. So I don't agree with him as a person, but that catalog is not going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful song that Rick Danko wrote for him called "All Our Pastimes," and I'm messing around with it with my daughter, and it's just, I think it's a perfect song for her and I to do, and I'm looking forward to doing it. And
Nice.
it's beautiful music, you know. If
a beautiful song is a beautiful song, regardless of who wrote it.
It's really it's interesting days we're in now.
Yeah,
so.
It really is. Now, this part of the show, I always love to kind of pick the brain and see musically what we were playing. You mentioned you're a Gibson Les Paul guy.
I am.
So if you got any you want to show off?
Yeah, I'll show you the one that I just used on our last tour.
Nice.
Hold on there.
Yep.
So this, is
oh, that is beautiful.
This was is a Desert Burst. This is a 2013 Gibson Les Paul Desert Burst.
Oh, wow.
And the 2013s are my favorite model years of this guitar.
Really?
Yes, it is. And I own 3 of them from the same year, and they're made exactly the same. I don't like baseball bat size necks. So when I got my first one of these, I believe it was the gold top. I have a gold top from 2013.
Nice.
With the same specs, the slim taper neck, and
nice.
and it's the perfect guitar for me. And this just fits me like a glove.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful Desert Burst guitar you got there. Yeah.
Yes, it's a 2013 Gibson Les Paul Standard Desert Burst, and it's one of 3 2013s that I have. It's my favorite model year for standards, because I don't have a very big hands. I don't like baseball bat type necks, and this is the slim taper neck that all 2013s came with. And it's got the locking tuners.
Are those locking Grovers?
I believe so, yes. The locking
Very
Grovers.
nice.
And it's got the push pull knobs on all the, but I don't really use those. Yeah. But I just love the way it plays. So I think the first one I had model that I bought of the 2013s was a gold top.
Nice.
And then I had a VOS gold top, 57, I think, VOS that I had traded for. And the neck was really big, and I went crazy about it. And then I found out that a friend of mine in Delaware we had a mutual friend who had one of these, and I just straight up traded him for it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because and he may have financially gotten the better end of the trade, but look, man, I'm a player. I'm not a collector. I can only collect guitars that I can play. If I can't play them, I don't want it.
See, I'm kind of on the same boat there. It's like, if I'm not playing it, then I'm not putting the guitar to use, and somebody else is playing it.
It's just sitting there. So I bought this. So I made the trade and got this one, and then I got last year before the pandemic, I got me a cherry sunburst of the same year, 2013, and they all play pretty much the same. They feel great. And I love them. I love them. So this one here, this cherry, this is the Desert. I took this on the road a year ago. I took it on a plane to play in Fargo, North Dakota, and on the way back they broke the headstock.
Oh no!
The airlines did. So I took it to the best luthier in Florida, which takes forever. It takes forever to get the next fix with him because he's so busy. Bob Peterson. But
shout out to Bob Peterson,
man, at Angel Guitars in Port St. Lucie.
There you go.
But it took about 4 months to get this fixed. but it came back stronger. You know, what happens is it always breaks in the weakest point.
Mhm.
When a Les Paul falls, it breaks at the same point right here. It's the weakest point.
Yeah.
But once he glues it back together, it's nearly unbreakable. So I got myself a nice Gator case, travel case.
Yep. Those are
Protects it
wonderful.
very well. They're the best. I love them. You don't have to wrap anything up or anything with those travel cases. And I took this. This is my road guitar, and this is one I take overseas because now it's already broke.
Yeah.
And so I take this one. So this is my travel guitar. I took this to Vegas in the middle of our tour, and
Awesome.
I just absolutely love it, man. That's why I like the sea glasses so much. I mean, they're the ones that come the closest to my favorite guitar.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm kind of stuck on Gibsons. I was a Fender guy in the beginning of my career.
Yep.
And Fenders are great guitars. You could throw them off a building, and they'll still stay in tune. But when I really couldn't afford Les Pauls back in the day, and when about almost 15 years ago, maybe less than that, a friend of mine had a Gibson Studio Standard, which Gibson made from 82 to, I think it was 84, actually 84 to like 88.
I think so. Yeah.
They were like the dot necks with the binding.
Mm-hmm.
And they outsold the regular standards for a while because they were just as good. They thought it was going to be a more economical version of the standard, but it was outselling the standards, so they stopped making them. And this one he had that he sold to me belonged to the Bee Gees. It sat in their studio at Middle Ear Studios in South Beach,
Oh wow.
Miami, and it had a Floyd Rose on it. And he had it taken off. He got it from the studio, and he had it taken off, and he refurbished it and sold it to me for a couple grand. And that was my first Les Paul, and I've been hooked on him ever since.
That's awesome.
So I have a traditional. I'm mostly the standards. I have three standards from 2013, and I have a traditional, a Les Paul traditional, which has a thicker, heavier neck.
Yeah, it's a little fatter,
little fatter neck,
more closer to a 50 style, but not quite as rounded. Yeah,
correct. And I like that one all right, but I love these slim taper necks. Any Les Paul with a slim taper neck, I'm in with.
Nice. That is so cool. Now, is there like you showed off that beautiful Les Paul? Is there like a piece of gear or guitar that you consider the holy grail for you, like that piece that you lust after?
The Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail.
Like in terms of what I own?
Or what you're or gear wise, is there like a piece that's the Holy Grail, like that you're searching for, or is that one guitar that you want or looking for?
No, I'm just looking, like I said, I'm not really into the collector kind of mode. I just need to find, I'm actually I need to get I want to get an ebony or a black Les Paul to accompany the rest. So I'm trying to find a Les Paul with the slim taper neck that's in black. Now the 2013 year they didn't make them in black.
Oh, they didn't.
No, and there's very few black Les Pauls that have the slim taper necks, except for the classic. So I might have to end up getting a Les Paul classic.
Nice.
Next. But I don't know. They got these new 60s standards that have the slim taper necks that I'm looking at. But I'm more into the color now, so I'm thinking I'm going to get a black Les Paul classic next.
Yeah, you got to have that nice little vintage vibe to it, I hear you.
I like collecting Les Pauls. They just it's an addiction. It's a healthy addiction. It certainly beats drugs.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got
like I used to have a bunch of Les Pauls. I switched over to PRS, but I still have these two, and one is a Class 5. It's an emerald top Class 5 with an ebony board, and I still bust that one out and play it every once in a while. And I've got this white Les Paul Custom. Yeah, so those are my two Gibsons, but yeah, so this great.
How are the necks on those?
The Les Paul Custom neck is an animal into itself.
Right.
It's not as fat as a 50s neck, but it's not slim tapered. Like it's for me, it was like if you can play a 60s tapered neck or a 50s one, you can play this one because it's almost like a hybrid from my perspective. It's like that happy medium.
I got you.
Yeah, but the Class 5 is a 60s slim tapered neck.
Really?
Yeah, with an ebony board, which is what I love to play. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I get a little more snappiness and a little more resonance from the ebony board than I do the rosewoods when I play.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever played one with an ebony board.
Well, if you're ever in Massachusetts, give me a call. I'll meet up and you can play it.
Do you live near Boston? Near Boston?
I am in central Massachusetts, so I'm about maybe like an hour away. So I'll make the ride.
Well, you're not far from Palmer, Mass.
No, I'm not.
And we play there all the time to do Don Odell's Legends. That
Nice.
It's a great like little music video series, and they post the videos on YouTube. Don's got this studio in Palmer, and every time we have a day off, we go in there and play in front of a 30-person audience, show off our songs, and so if we ever get back there, I'll call you. I'll let you come by and get you on the list.
Oh, that'll be awesome. I would love that. That would be so much fun. I'll bring the Les Pauls to check out.
Please do.
Yes, absolutely. Albert, before we start wrapping up, is there anything you want to plug or promote? By the way, for our audience, we'll have everything that we've talked about and plugged, like Albert's albums and music and where to find him, in the video description below. Is there anything you wanted to plug or promote before we start wrapping up?
Just keep an eye out for me on the road. We're going into the studio this month, and we should have a new record out early next year. And just keep an eye on my dates, albertcastiglia.net.
Nice.
And look me up on Facebook, and
wonderful.
That's pretty much it.
And Albert's music is available on all digital platforms. And it's like you said, Albert Castiglia. And we're gonna have links to where you can find them. And
I'll have lots of links for you.
Oh, perfect.
I'll have a link to the record label that I'm with, and they got my record and plenty of great records. Yeah, I'll be sure to get you the link.
Wonderful. So Albert, thank you so much for making the time for me, and sitting through with the Pats fan.
Well, we won't hold that against you.
Yeah, I don't hold Miami against anybody. So,
what do you think? I have to. There's another moment, another seminal moment when the Dolphins began to decline. That's when my blues became real, and that's when I started to get into. We got into the blues pretty much at the similar time.
Yeah.
When the Dolphins began to suck, when I guess the last time they went to the Super Bowl was 1985.
They lost to the 49ers and Joe Montana.
Yes, in Palo Alto. And that was the last time we saw any type of glory. And so, look, those things happen. The Dolphins suck. They suck right now, but
they'll bounce
back.
If
it wasn't for the Dolphins, I would probably not have the kind of blues that I have.
I love it.
The music world might have changed. I might have been a polka musician.
There you go.
The Dolphins sucking.
We would be rolling out the barrel instead of bringing on the rain. So you know what? I'm glad the Dolphins sucked because we got an amazing blues player out of it.
Okay, well, it's time for them to get better now.
That's right. And with Tua, they probably will if he can stay healthy.
If they don't have an offensive line, it's not going to matter who you got there.
That's very true.
They better fix that O-line real quick.
Oh yeah. Well, Albert, thank you again so much, and to our audience, thank you for tuning in to another episode. Be light and love, everybody.